They said it was the perfect house for a family. Quiet street, plenty of space, and an old swimming pool nestled in the backyard like a forgotten jewel. When the Martinez family first drove through the neighborhood, they didn't think twice about the pool. It looked inviting enough in the bright afternoon sun, its water shimmering gently, reflecting the clear sky above. But something about that pool, something just beneath the surface, would soon turn their perfect new home into a place they'd never forget, and for all the wrong reasons. The day they moved in was full of promise. The kids ran excitedly through the empty rooms while Mr. and Mrs. Martinez carried boxes and made plans. But as dusk settled, something subtle shifted. That's when the first oddity happened, an unusual chill in the air, concentrated near the pool. Mrs. Martinez wrapped her arms tightly around herself as she stepped onto the patio. "Must be the evening breeze," she said, but no one else felt it quite like she did. The neighbors, while polite, had a quiet distance about them. Rosa, the woman who lived across the street, was the first to speak to Mrs. Martinez alone. "That pool, it's beautiful, but it's old," she said carefully. "You'll want to be careful around it at night." When Mrs. Martinez asked why, Rosa only smiled nervously and changed the subject as if the words were stuck in her throat. The first night in the house was restless. The sounds of the neighborhood were muted, replaced by something softer, a faint ripple of water, almost like a sigh, coming from the pool. Mr. Martinez, curious, stepped outside, peering over the edge. The water was calm, the moonlight painting silver paths across its surface. He called out, "Is everything okay?" but heard nothing but silence in reply. Still, a feeling prickled the back of his neck, a sensation that something unseen was watching. Days passed, and the strange feeling grew stronger. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the air around the pool grew colder, heavier. The children, too, sensed it. Little Anna, the youngest, often refused to play near the water, clutching her doll tightly and whispering, "The pool is sleeping, and it doesn't like noise." Her older brother, Miguel, teased her at first, but even he found himself avoiding the poolside after dark. One evening, Mr. Martinez decided to clean the pool. As he lowered the net into the water, the surface rippled wildly, though the air was still. His heart quickened. Suddenly, a faint whisper brushed his ear, so soft he thought it might be the wind, except there was none. The voice was too low, too deliberate, like a secret being shared just with him. He jerked the net back, scanning the water nervously, but found nothing. That night, Mrs. Martinez awoke suddenly. She thought she heard her name whispered, soft and distant, coming from outside. Peering through the window, she saw nothing but the moonlit pool, its surface still and dark. Still the whisper echoed again, this time a little clearer, almost pleading. She told herself it was just her imagination, exhaustion playing tricks, but a knot of unease settled deep in her chest. Rosa, from across the street, often stood by her window late into the night, watching the pool. She hadn't been able to sleep either. She remembered when she was a child, stories about the girl who drowned there decades ago, the girl who vanished without a trace, her body never found. The neighbors never spoke openly about it, but the whispers were real, and so was the figure some claimed to see standing silently beneath the water's surface. One afternoon, Anna was playing near the pool, her feet barely touching the edge. She looked into the water and gasped, stepping back quickly. "There's someone under there," she whispered. The family rushed over, but when they looked, the pool was empty, just clear, still water reflecting the sky. That night, Mr. Martinez sat alone by the pool, trying to shake off the creeping fear that had begun to wrap around their new home. The water's surface shimmered faintly under the moonlight, and for a moment he thought he saw a pale face staring back at him, eyes hollow, lips moving in silent words. He blinked, and the face was gone. Sleep became harder for the family. Dreams mixed with reality, filled with watery voices and shadowy figures. Every night, the whispers seemed louder, more urgent, echoing from the pool as if it held a secret it refused to share. The pool had always been there, silent and still, but now it seemed alive, watching, waiting. And the neighbors? They watched too, but kept their distance, their own memories heavy and quiet. For in this neighborhood, some secrets were buried deep, just like the girl who disappeared in the pool long ago. The whispering water was a warning, a call, and the Martinez family was only beginning to understand the price of listening. As days slipped into nights, the unsettling whispers from the pool grew clearer, more persistent, like a secret thread weaving itself into the family's daily lives. The Martinez family tried to hold on to normalcy, but the water seemed to have other plans. No one could explain the cold that lingered near the pool, nor the strange ripples that appeared when the air was still. Rosa, the neighbor who had warned them, watched with a growing worry. She often saw Anna standing silently at the pool's edge, her eyes wide, frozen in fear. "The water talks to me," the little girl would whisper, but no one knew what to say in response. Miguel, usually the skeptic, caught himself pausing whenever he passed by, sensing an invisible weight pressing down on his chest. One afternoon, Mrs. Martinez noticed something strange. As she hung laundry outside, the pool water suddenly splashed violently, waves rising as if a storm had struck. The sky, however, was perfectly clear, not a breeze to stir the air. She frowned, stepping closer, but the surface settled immediately, leaving no trace of disturbance. Her heart pounded with a nameless fear. That evening, the family gathered around the dinner table, trying to ignore the tension that had crept into the house. Yet whispers floated through the air, soft and urgent, sometimes sounding like a desperate cry. "It's just the wind," Mr. Martinez insisted, but even he struggled to keep his voice steady. Later, the mother stood by the window, staring out at the pool. Suddenly she saw it, a pale, slender figure standing at the water's edge. Its eyes were hollow, its face impossibly still. She gasped, her breath catching in her throat, and the figure vanished like mist in the dark. She told the others, but they dismissed it as a trick of the light or her tired mind. Anna's nightmares worsened. She spoke of drowning hands pulling her beneath the water, of cold fingers wrapping around her ankles. The child refused to sleep alone, clutching her doll as if it were a lifeline. The family's attempts to comfort her felt futile against an invisible, growing force. One evening, as the moon rose high, Mr. Martinez decided to take a closer look. He sat beside the pool, watching the water's surface with a mix of dread and determination. The whispers grew louder, swirling around him, filling the air with unintelligible words. Suddenly, the water glowed faintly, casting an eerie light on his face. Frozen, he leaned closer, trying to see what stirred beneath the surface. For a heartbeat, he glimpsed the pale face of a girl, eyes wide and pleading. Then the water rippled violently, and a chilling cold surged through his body. He stumbled back, heart racing, unable to shake the feeling that something had tried to pull him in. The family's unease spread to the neighbors. Rosa shared stories whispered among the old residents, of a girl who had drowned, her body lost to the depths, her spirit forever bound to the pool. Some had seen her standing silently beneath the water, watching, waiting. As the nights passed, the pool became a place of dread. The water sometimes splashed violently, as if disturbed by unseen hands. The whispers grew into desperate cries, and shadows flickered beneath the surface, shapes too dark to be reflections. One night, Anna approached the pool, drawn by a force she could not resist. She reached out, her fingers skimming the surface. Suddenly, a cold grip seized her wrist, and she screamed, yanked toward the water's depths. The family rushed outside, pulling her back, breathless and trembling. After that night, the family knew the pool was no longer just water and stone. It was something else, something alive with sorrow and rage, something that would not let them go easily. And so the whispers continued, a chilling lullaby carried on the night air, reminding the Martinez family that some places hold secrets too dark to escape, and some waters never forget. The days after Anna's terrifying near drowning were filled with a heavy silence, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The family tried to carry on, but the weight of what had happened lingered in every room, every shadow. The pool, once a simple patch of water, had become a dark presence at the heart of their home. Mrs. Martinez found herself watching the pool from the kitchen window more often, unable to look away. Sometimes, when the sun dipped low, she thought she saw movement just beneath the surface, a fleeting shape that disappeared whenever she blinked. The air around the pool had grown colder still, a sharp contrast to the summer heat. One evening, Miguel decided to stay up late, determined to catch whatever was haunting their backyard. He sat by the pool, flashlight in hand, heart pounding in the quiet night. The water shimmered unnaturally, and as he stared, a figure emerged. A pale girl, her eyes dark and hollow, her hair flowing like tendrils beneath the water. Miguel froze, unable to move as the figure raised a hand slowly, beckoning him closer. The whispers swirled louder, like a chorus of desperate voices rising from the depths. Panic surged through him, and he scrambled away, nearly falling as the figure faded into the blackness. He told his parents the next day, but his voice trembled with doubt. They tried to reassure him, but deep down they knew the pool was no longer just water. It was a gateway to something far older and far more dangerous. At night, the house echoed with sounds that had no source. Soft sobbing, faint scratching on the walls, and the constant low whisper of the water. Mrs. Martinez began locking the doors early, and Mr. Martinez installed motion lights around the pool, hoping to catch any intruder. But nothing could stop what was happening beneath the surface. Anna's condition worsened. She refused to speak, often staring blankly at the pool as if in a trance. When asked what she saw, she whispered, "She's waiting. She wants me." The family's fear deepened, realizing that the ghostly figure was not just watching, they were being hunted. Rosa came over one afternoon with an old photo album, yellowed with age. She showed the family pictures of a girl named Emily, who had lived in their house long ago. Emily had disappeared in the pool one summer, her body never found. The neighbors had whispered about her ghost for years, but no one dared speak openly. That night the whispers returned, louder and more urgent. The pool glowed faintly, a sickly green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The family gathered inside, windows shuttered, but the voices seeped through the walls, relentless and haunting. Mr. Martinez, desperate for answers, placed a small camera by the pool's edge. The next morning, the footage revealed something chilling. Ripples moving against the wind, shadows shifting beneath the surface, and then, just before the camera died, a pale hand reaching out. The family's world had changed forever. The pool was no longer a place of recreation, but a prison for a restless spirit, and it was growing stronger by the day. No one knew what it wanted or what it might do next, but one thing was certain. The whispers would not stop until they had what they came for. The days grew darker, though the sun still shone. The Martinez family felt as if a shadow had fallen over their lives, one that clung to the corners of every room, to every silent moment by the pool. The whispers were no longer soft, no longer distant. They filled the night air, swirling through the house like a storm no one could escape. Anna's silence stretched into long, empty hours. She stopped eating, stopped speaking, her eyes fixed on something only she could see. Mrs. Martinez stayed by her side as much as possible, her heart breaking with every whispered word the child refused to share. "She's trapped," Anna said once, barely audible. "Trapped like me." One night, as the family huddled inside, the power suddenly cut out. Darkness swallowed the house. In the thick silence, the pool's surface began to glow faintly, an eerie blue-green light pulsing like a living thing. Mr. Martinez grabbed a flashlight and cautiously stepped outside, the beam cutting through the shadows. The air was colder than ever, and the whispers grew louder, urgent, pleading. The pool seemed alive, rippling even though the air was still. Mr. Martinez's breath hitched when a pale figure appeared on the far edge of the water, a girl, her eyes hollow, her lips moving silently. She raised her hand, beckoning him closer. Fear rooted him to the spot, but a deep sadness in those eyes pulled at him. The girl's voice finally broke through the silence, a soft, desperate whisper carried by the wind. "Help me. Please." Inside, Mrs. Martinez held Anna tightly, tears streaming down her face. "What does she want?" she whispered to no one. The house seemed to answer with a chill that sank deep into their bones. Over the next days, strange things happened more frequently. Objects moved on their own, chairs scraping across floors, doors creaking open, water splashing in the empty pool. The family's nerves frayed with every unexplained sound. Miguel, growing braver despite his fear, spent time researching. He found old records in the town library about Emily, the girl who drowned in the pool decades ago. She had been lonely, neglected, trapped in a world that didn't understand her. The story said her spirit was restless, seeking someone to set her free. One afternoon, Miguel returned home, clutching an old book of local legends. He gathered his family and read aloud a passage about a ritual that might release trapped souls, if done with courage and care. That night, under a blood-red moon, the Martinez family stood together by the pool. The whispers swirled around them, growing louder, desperate. The pale figure emerged once more, reaching out from beneath the water, her eyes filled with hope and sorrow. As they began the ritual, the wind picked up, the water roiling like a storm. The girl's voice echoed louder. "Thank you, but beware, she's still here." Suddenly, the pool's surface exploded in a spray of cold water. The house shook, the lights flickered, and a scream, low and hollow, echoed through the night. The ritual had begun something far beyond their understanding. The pool was no longer just a prison, it was a gateway, and something dark was stirring, waiting to be unleashed. After the night of the ritual, the Martinez family felt as if the very air around them had thickened, weighted with an invisible menace. The pool, once calm beneath the moonlight, now churned with restless energy, as if a storm swirled just beneath the surface. Anna's condition worsened. She began speaking in voices not her own, whispers filled with cold rage, laced with sorrow and warning. Sometimes late at night, Mrs. Martinez would hear her chanting strange words, her eyes glazed and distant. Miguel stayed close, desperate to protect his sister and uncover the truth behind the darkness that gripped their home. He searched old town records and legends, piecing together the terrible history of the pool. How many had vanished over the decades, swallowed by the waters without a trace? The neighbors spoke in hushed tones, sharing stories of eerie lights, unexplained drownings, and a figure seen wandering near the pool, sometimes a girl, sometimes something else. Rosa warned the family not to trust the water, not to trust what lurked beneath. One evening, as the family tried to eat dinner, the power flickered violently. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly, frost creeping along the windows. Anna's voice changed abruptly, a cold, distant tone that sent chills through everyone. "Let me out," she whispered, voice not her own. "Let me free." The family exchanged terrified glances. They realized the spirit they had tried to help was no longer alone. Something darker, something far more dangerous had taken hold. Mr. Martinez decided they needed help, someone who understood the supernatural. He contacted a local spiritualist, a woman known for her work with restless spirits and haunted places. The spiritualist arrived with a calm, steady presence. She walked slowly around the pool, murmuring prayers and blessings. Yet even she could not hide the unease that grew on her face as the water seemed to churn and whisper beneath her feet. That night, as the spiritualist conducted her ritual, the pool erupted with violent force. Water splashed onto the deck, and a chilling scream echoed, piercing the night. Shadows twisted and writhed beneath the surface, and the pale figure of the girl appeared once more, her eyes filled with fury. The spiritualist's voice rose in defiance, but the darkness was strong. The pool's whispers became screams, filling the air with rage and despair. Anna suddenly collapsed, convulsing violently as the spirit battled within her. The family rushed to her side, holding her tight as the struggle raged on. When dawn broke, silence fell. Anna lay still, exhausted but free, for now. The spirit's hold was broken, but the pool remained, a living nightmare waiting just beneath the surface. The Martinez family knew this was far from over. The pool's dark secrets were only beginning to surface, and the true horror was yet to come. Days passed, but peace was fleeting. The house was heavy with silence, broken only by the occasional creak or whisper carried on the wind. Anna rested, but her eyes held a distant, haunted look, as if part of her still lingered beneath the surface of that dark pool. Miguel tried to focus on normal life, school, friends, but the shadow of the pool followed him everywhere. The mysterious figure appeared to him too, but only in fleeting glimpses, just at the edge of his vision, a pale shape standing by the water's edge. One evening, Miguel was outside when the wind shifted, carrying a soft whisper. He turned, heart pounding, and there she was, the pale girl, standing silently beside the pool. Her eyes locked onto his, and he felt a chill deep in his bones. "She's coming," she said softly. "You can't run." Miguel's breath caught. He wanted to scream, to run, but he was frozen. The girl reached out, her hand passing through his as if he were a ghost. Inside, the family was unraveling. Mrs. Martinez barely slept, haunted by nightmares of drowning and endless water. Mr. Martinez grew desperate, trying everything to protect his family, prayers, rituals, even barriers around the pool. But nothing stopped the darkness. One night, as the family gathered in the living room, a sudden crash echoed from outside. They rushed to the window, only to see the pool bubbling violently, the water boiling as if it were alive. The mysterious figure appeared again, rising from the water like a ghostly queen. Her eyes burned with rage and sorrow as she screamed, a sound that shook the very walls. Anna's voice joined hers, soft, pleading, terrified. "Please, don't take me." The family realized the spirit wanted more than freedom. It wanted a replacement. Fear gripped their hearts. They knew the pool would not let them leave. The house, the pool, the whispers. They were all traps, pulling them deeper into a nightmare they might never escape. And in the darkest hours before dawn, the pool claimed its next victim. The night after the pool claimed its victim was the darkest the Martinez family had ever known. The air in the house was thick with sorrow and fear, the silence broken only by muffled sobs and whispered prayers. Anna's bed was empty, her presence vanished like a fading shadow. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez searched frantically, their voices cracking with desperation as they called her name into the cold night. But the only response was the low, haunting whisper of the water outside, the same whisper that had haunted the neighborhood for decades. Miguel sat by the pool's edge, staring into the black depths where his sister had disappeared. The water shimmered with a ghostly light, and he thought he saw a faint outline. Anna's face, pale and sorrowful, staring back at him from beneath the surface. He reached out, fingers trembling, but the water rippled and swallowed the image whole. Days turned into restless nights. The family's hope waned, replaced by a growing dread that the pool had become a prison, not just for Anna, but for their souls. Strange things began happening inside the house. Doors slammed on their own, footsteps echoed in empty halls, and ghostly figures appeared in mirrors, shadowy reflections with hollow eyes that watched their every move. Mr. Martinez refused to give up. He contacted experts, priests, and spiritualists, desperate for a way to end the nightmare. But no one could explain the pool's power or stop the darkness that spread like a cancer through their lives. One stormy night, as lightning cracked across the sky, the family gathered in the living room, huddled together in fearful silence. Suddenly the power cut out, plunging them into complete darkness. A cold wind swept through the room, carrying with it the unmistakable sound of whispering, soft, urgent, impossible to ignore. From the shadows emerged the pale figure once more, the ghostly girl, her eyes burning with rage and sorrow. She spoke, her voice like the ripple of water over stone. "You cannot escape. The pool chooses." Panic surged through the family as the figure reached out. The room filled with icy water, rising swiftly, drowning the walls in darkness. Miguel screamed for his parents, but the water pressed down, silencing their cries. And as the flood consumed the house, the whispers grew louder, echoing in the depths. "Come with us. Forever." The flood receded by dawn, leaving behind silence heavier than any storm. The Martinez family was gone, vanished without a trace, swallowed whole by the house and the pool's dark curse. The neighbors whispered, eyes wide with fear, but no one dared to approach the haunted water again. Weeks passed, and the pool remained, a shimmering black mirror that reflected nothing but despair. Rosa, the elderly neighbor, often sat on her porch, staring at the still water, her lips moving in quiet prayer. One evening, a stranger arrived in town, a historian obsessed with uncovering local legends and the truth behind the pool. Ignoring warnings, he walked up to the edge, notebook in hand, ready to confront the whispers. As he leaned over the water, a cold hand gripped his wrist, dragging him toward the depths. The whispering grew into a chorus of lost voices, calling, pleading, dragging him into the abyss. Back in town, the legend of the Whispering Pool grew darker. Stories spread of people who disappeared, those who dared to swim, to approach, or even to speak near the cursed water. The mysterious figure lingered, a guardian and a prison keeper, her eyes hollow but burning with eternal sorrow. And somewhere deep beneath the pool, the trapped souls waited, whispering, reaching, desperate for release, but doomed to remain. The pool was no longer just a place, it was a warning, a secret buried in water and whispers. And the nightmare was far from over. The pool had become a legend whispered in fearful tones throughout the town, a dark secret no one dared speak of openly. It was said that the water was cursed, a gateway to something beyond human understanding, something ancient and vengeful. Rosa, the elderly neighbor, knew more than she let on. She remembered when the pool was first built, a beautiful addition to the neighborhood. But beneath its shimmering surface, a darkness grew, unseen, ignored. She told the story of Emily, the girl who drowned decades ago, but whose spirit never found rest. Emily was not alone in the depths. Others had vanished too, their souls tangled in a web of water and whispers. The historian's disappearance only added fuel to the growing fear. Some said he had uncovered truths that should have remained hidden, that the pool's waters were a prison and a gateway. One night, Rosa sat by her window, watching the pool under a full moon. The whispers were louder than ever, calling her name softly. She felt a chill run down her spine as the pale figure appeared again, only this time not just one ghost, but many. They circled the pool like shadows, their voices rising in a mournful chorus. Rosa whispered an ancient prayer, but even her words seemed powerless. Suddenly the pool's surface broke apart as cold hands reached out, grasping at the air, desperate to pull someone in. Rosa's heart pounded as the water surged toward her house. She ran inside, locking every door and window, but the whispers followed her, filling the rooms, echoing through the walls. The town was no longer safe. The pool's curse had spread, its hunger growing with every soul it claimed. And in the darkness, something waited, patient, watchful, ready to claim the next victim. The whispering was not just a warning, it was a call, a promise, a nightmare that would never end. The town had grown quiet, too quiet. Days passed with an unnatural stillness settling over the neighborhood. The pool sat like a black eye in the center of it all, unmoving, but whispering still, soft, relentless, calling to those who dared listen. Rosa, the last of the old neighbors, felt the weight of years pressing down, her body frail, but her spirit restless. She knew the truth, that the pool was alive, a living nightmare, a prison for countless souls trapped between worlds. The historian's disappearance had only scratched the surface. Something far older and darker had been awakened, feeding on fear, on despair, on life itself. One stormy night, when thunder rolled like the growl of some ancient beast, Rosa gathered what little strength remained. She decided to confront the evil that had haunted her home for decades. Walking toward the pool, rain soaking her thin clothes, she spoke aloud the prayers of old, ancient words passed down through generations. The water stirred. From the depths rose the pale figure, the ghostly girl, eyes blazing with a terrible fire, surrounded by the countless faces of the lost, all reaching, all silent. Rosa held her ground, voice steady but heart pounding. "You will not have them," she said. "Not tonight." The water roared as the spirits surged forward, a wave of cold and darkness crashing over the shore. But then a voice came from behind. A young man, Miguel, returned. He had escaped the pool's grasp, but not unscathed. His eyes held shadows. His voice was hollow. "They don't want to leave," he whispered. "They are bound, like me." Together, Rosa and Miguel faced the pool, the whispers rising to a deafening roar. In a desperate final act, Rosa performed the ritual one last time, pouring her own strength into breaking the curse. The water boiled and churned, the spirits screaming in rage and sorrow. Then silence. The pool's surface calmed, reflecting only the moonlight. Miguel collapsed, free but changed. Rosa smiled sadly. "The nightmare's over, for now." But as she turned to leave, the water rippled once more, and deep beneath the surface, eyes opened, watching, waiting. The whispering pool had not been defeated. It was eternal, a curse that would whisper through generations, and in the darkest hours it would call again. "Come with us, forever."